Hello everyone. If you don't know me, my name is Kendra. I like to do obviously SpongeBob art progressions on my YouTube channel and on my TikTok, which is Kencay, Kencay. You can follow me on there for more of those. I'm also a recent college graduate, and today I kind of wanted to make a video mostly for myself to look back on about the events surrounding the pandemic and being a college student at the time. If you are interested in hearing my story of being in college around the same time that the pandemic hit and the events surrounding that, graduation, everything else, then keep on watching. This might be relevant to you if you are in college now or if you are entering college in the coming semesters. Or if you just want to know what it was like for college students. I did graduate in the midst of a pandemic. I graduated in December of 2020, so that was a lot different than what I thought it was going to be, obviously, when I entered college in 2016. So things changed really rapidly, and I know it was obviously required and in the best interest of everyone's health and safety, but it was hard to deal with when you have a certain expectation of how things are going to go. It's hard to adapt really quickly, and also being the first person to graduate from college in my family, I had pretty high expectations of what my graduation would look like, and it wasn't anywhere near remotely close to what I had imagined. If you would like to hear that story, then keep on watching. This is mostly just for me to look back on later, and for future generations of my family to look back on later, because I mean, this is a major historical event, and I just wanted to get my feelings on camera, so that I can look back on them and that my family can look back on them. Like I said, I entered college in 2016. I entered college right out of high school. I graduated in May of 2016 from Pigeon Forge High School in Tennessee, and I graduated valedictorian. I had a 4.0 GPA in high school. I was a high school cheerleader. I was in multiple different clubs. I was in DECA, I was in student government. I got a full ride to the University of Tennessee, Knoxville in April of 2016. So obviously the decision had been made for me where I was gonna go, and UT was my top pick. So I was really glad to be offered a scholarship to go to my #1 school. I applied to 6 colleges. I was accepted to 5 of them, and all 5 of them offered me some form of financial aid, but UT's offer was the largest amount of financial aid. I did apply to Vanderbilt, University of Tennessee, University of Denver, Colorado, ETSU, Walter State, and TTU. Vanderbilt, I ended up forgetting to fill out this one piece of paper that you have to do for your application, and so they threw my application out because I hadn't filled out this one piece of paper. So I was not accepted from Vanderbilt, but I was accepted to the 5 other schools that I applied to. So in August of 2016, I entered the University of Tennessee as a freshman. I had no idea what I was doing. Nobody in my family has ever been to college. Nobody in my family was able to give me advice on what their college years were like or how to plan their academic career or anything like that. So I basically had to fend for myself and figure things out by myself. And in the end, that did lead me to taking an extra semester of college, but I don't regret it. I did switch my major twice, trying to figure out what I wanted to study, so it happens, but I graduated in the end, so everything worked out. But I entered college, and my major was undeclared because I had no idea what I wanted to study. I ended up taking some classes that kind of explore majors and careers at the school. I knew I was leaning towards something in the science field, but I wasn't exactly sure what. So I ended up declaring environmental science as my major, and I believe sustainability was my concentration. I didn't have a minor at the time. So I began taking sustainability courses, environmental science courses, and in the spring of my freshman year, I ended up taking a biology class. And the first week, I knew that I wanted to switch my major to biology. I had already switched from undecided to environmental science, so the beginning of my sophomore year, I switched again to biology. My actual major is biochemistry, cellular, and molecular biology. And at the time, I still did not have a minor because I was already so behind in my major, having switched my sophomore year. I just decided to catch up on my major, and if I happened to fall into a minor at some point, then I would just take that as it went. I did end up falling into a minor, but I did not declare it until my senior year. Obviously, a couple years go by. I was doing absolutely fine in my major. I was getting really good grades, felt really good about it. I felt like really determined and really interested in what I was studying. The fall semester of 2019, I went to a couple of advising appointments, and I realized that it was going to take me an extra semester to finish my bachelor's degree. I was really disappointed about that, but I knew that I couldn't just give up. Like, obviously I was already most of the way through my bachelor's, so whatever it took, I was going to finish it. My scholarship only covered 4 years, so I did have to take out a small loan for the last semester of college that I attended. It wasn't a huge one, but I did have to take out some student loans. In November of 2019, I got engaged. By December, I was pretty much set in stone that I was going to graduate in December of 2020. So I had a full year left, and I'd also taken an internship with the University of Tennessee at the chemistry department, and it was in conjunction with the Department of Energy and Oak Ridge National Laboratory as a biochemical engineering intern. And I would not have gotten that if I didn't have a year of school left, because it was like an 11-month internship. So I was actually really grateful that things fell into place that way, because it was as if, you know, things were meant to be that way. I was meant to graduate a semester later because I got this amazing opportunity for an internship. I had committed myself to a lot of academic and work-based things that I had to do. So not only was I attending the internship meetings once a week on Tuesday evenings at like 6 o'clock, and I was also doing research and compiling PowerPoints and things like that for my internship. I was also enrolled in 18 hours of classes for my degree, and I was working part-time on the weekends. So I had taken up a lot of commitments in the spring of 2020, and that definitely had begun to weigh on me. In January of 2020, I started my internship, so by the end of January, I was working part-time 3 days a week, attending 18 hours of classes, doing all of my coursework, and doing internship work. I didn't have much time for anything outside of those 3 things. So when I say that I was not watching the news and preparing myself for anything pandemic related, it's not because I was actively ignoring any of those things. It was just because I was so overworked and overscheduled that I was not paying attention to anything in the way of news. So when March of 2020 rolled around, I was actually really shocked and surprised at the way that things had turned out and the turn of events that occurred. It was as if one day things were totally normal, and I'm a stressed out college student who also works part-time and has no time for anything else and budgets every hour of her time doing one of those 3 things, to we're not coming back after spring break. Literally, it happened within maybe 1 day for me. I remember distinctly being in my sociology class that happened later in the evening. It was like a 4:30 to 5:45 class. And the sociology teacher was on one of the school boards that was determining basically their course of action with this pandemic. And I remember her telling us, like right before spring break, that she had been to a meeting and they were discussing not coming back after spring break, or at least holding off returning from spring break until April. And a lot of us were shocked by that. A lot of us had plans for spring break out of state. A lot of us hadn't really been paying attention or had the time to pay attention to anything going on in the world. I remember her being like so like assured that there was no other course of action that the university was going to take, and I just remember being like, I've only been out of school for one snow day in the entire 4 years that I've attended this university. I don't know how this university would just go to online learning. You know, like, I just remember being just so baffled by that and just really just being in denial about it. I was like, there's no way that the university is going to cancel classes and just do online. I was hopeful about getting a break because at the time I was so overscheduled. But I really just was in disbelief. I could not believe that the university was thinking about going to online classes. And I can put some pictures and clips of the notifications that I was sent by the university, detailing what was going to happen after spring break. And I got a series of messages because at first they delayed returning until April 4th, I believe. This is the first of 2 UT alerts that I got discussing what would happen after spring break, and this one was talking about returning to in-person classes on April 3rd. Obviously, that did not happen. I got another one a couple weeks later saying that we would move to online classes for the remainder of the semester. This was on March 11th of 2020, and I cannot find the screenshot of the other message that I got from UT discussing going to online for the rest of the semester. But then after that, they transitioned to fully online. The week before spring break, literally the last class that I had before spring break, I remember my my molecular biology professor being like, okay, well, like, I'm an older person and I'm not as familiar with technologies, so I'm going to do my best to keep up the quizzes online and lecture materials, and I'll post them, and then everybody download Zoom, because Zoom became the platform that we all moved on to, and the university provided that for free, a subscription. So he told us how to gain access to that subscription and told us to go ahead and download it, and that we would be using it in the time between the end of spring break and when we would be coming back to the university, not knowing at the time that we weren't coming back. So yeah, all of my professors, literally the last class before spring break, had kind of gone over a brief, overview of what would be happening in between the end of spring break and April 4th. And it was so quick, and they just had to adjust the schedule and basically tell us what was going to happen within the span of 24 hours. Editing Kendra here. As I'm reviewing this footage, I remembered something kind of funny. I also remember right before we went home for spring break, all of the Starbucks locations on campus had stopped using reusable cups. Like, you couldn't bring your own mug and have them make your drink in your own cup anymore. And, like, I remember doing that a lot as a student because you would get a cup discount, a reusable cup discount, and it would save you, like, I think $1 or so on your drinks. And I was and still am an avid Starbucks drinker. So I would do that. And then I remember, like, in the last couple weeks of school before spring break, they stopped taking reusable cups. And I remember just thinking that was so weird. Like, it was such an arbitrary new rule that they had put in place. Obviously, it was to stop contamination. Like, you can't have the viruses on your cup and then have it in your workstation while they're making drinks, and then, so on and so on. But yeah, I look back at that now and I'm just like, duh, like, why are you so stupid? So it was so odd and unpredictable and everything else. And it's like, I remember now looking back that a lot of people, like my parents especially, were, talking about coronavirus since January, and especially in February when we had our first death. But I don't remember ever hearing about any of it. I don't remember hearing about any of the cases, any of the deaths, or really anything like that until the school shut down. And I don't know why. I'm just so baffled that I just could not get my hands on that information until we were out of school. But yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of my classmates shared that sentiment because literally the day before we left for spring break, all of us were like, this is crazy. I mean, I obviously we're going to come back. I don't think this school is going to close and all this other stuff. But when I got that first alert, I was like, wow, I mean, they're really taking this seriously. Like, this is a big thing. Like, this is like really scary. You ever think about like a disaster movie where things shift in the span of 24 hours and just this pandemonium begins and everybody is scared out of their minds. Everybody's running around. Everybody's, bulking up on supplies. Everybody is trying to get their hands on PPE. All the schools are closing. All of the businesses are closing. All of the government-run things are closing. I mean, it literally happened within the span of a couple weeks. And it was so chaotic and rushed and scary. And all this information is coming out at once. And it's a lot to handle. After spring break, we had begun doing some of our online courses, and later, I think sometime before April 4th, when we were scheduled to return, we got another UT alert saying that all classes would be switched to virtual for the rest of the semester. And for those of us who were graduating in the spring of 2020, I think that was also really hard to take because I remember a lot of my classmates just being, baffled that their commencement was not going to happen, Like, they had plans for commencement, and they worked so hard for the past 4+ years, and now commencement was not going to happen. So everything was just up in the air for such a long period of time that none of us really knew what was going to happen. None of us could get certain things at the store. Like, I remember trying to go to the store and there was no meat, there was no chicken, there was no beef, no cleaning supplies whatsoever, no wipes, no toilet paper, no eggs, no milk, no pasta, no dry goods, no canned goods, literally nothing. Not only did we have residents doing that, but we also had tourists doing that because a lot of them were already here on spring break. Editing Kendra here again. As I was watching myself talk about, like, the stores being empty and there being a shortage of meat and toilet paper and other goods that are obviously necessities. I remember discussing in my sociology class virtually about how a lot of the supply chains were being affected by the pandemic because a lot of these factories that were distributing these goods were closed because a lot of them had coronavirus outbreaks within the factories. And our supply chain just isn't set up to, like, handle obviously a pandemic, like a global disaster. So even if we did have the meat available, there wasn't a means by which we could get it shipped to individual people. Like, for example, certain products would be shipped to, like, bigger locations like restaurants and things like that, and there wasn't a way for the supply chain to switch from shipping those things to restaurants to shipping those things to grocery stores or individuals. So a lot of things went to waste, and there was just no availability for things like that. So that was the first time that it got really scary in terms of, like, we won't be able to access things that we need to sustain ourselves. And my sociology teacher really discussed, like, it's probably going to be a good idea in the next coming years to, maybe think about building your own garden or just kind of trying to think of new ways to sustain yourself in case things like this would happen again. Because, I mean, I wouldn't say the worst case scenario happened. Like, we were still able to get food to eat and things like that. Like, we made it through, but a lot of people didn't. So, yeah, it's just something to think about, like, having your own food and your own things to sustain yourself within your own home is going to be really important, I think, going forward, just because I think we were all shocked to not be able to, go to the store easily and access the things that we needed to survive. So that was another thing that was really scary. So yeah, and then all of a sudden it was just a ghost town. It's like one week we have people here on spring break, and the next week everything's closed. So also my job, I was working as an assistant manager at an escape game. And obviously, escape games are not essential businesses. I think March 17th, I believe, we had a group chat for communication between my coworkers and the owner of the business, and the owner of the business had decided, with all of our, concerns, that we were going to close until May 1st. So from March 17th all the way through the end of April, we were going to be closed. So at that point, I was unemployed until May. My fiance was also working in the tourism industry, and they had also decided to close the store until May 1st. So by that time, both of us were unemployed. I did end up getting the CARES Act because I was in college, so I did get a little bit of money from that. My fiance got some unemployment, but not much, because he was only on unemployment for like 2 weeks before his employer decided to apply for a business grant, and he was paid 80% of his salary weekly while he was at home. I did get unemployment. I was part of the group of people who got the extra $600 on top of that, so we were just surviving on unemployment. I was not able to get any unemployment for 6 weeks. So from the time that my job closed until 6 weeks after that, I was not being paid whatsoever. I did get the CARES Act, luckily, but aside from that, I was just surviving on what savings I had. And I was only working 3 days a week before that. So, and the reason that is because the owner of my job had tried to do the same thing that the owner of my fiance's job had done, which was get a business loan through the government for coronavirus aid, and she was denied. So in the time that this business loan was trying to be processed, we were not getting paid anything. She did send us one check, which was basically equal an average amount that we would usually get every 2 weeks. She sent us one check in the entire 6 weeks. A lot of us had already filed independently in this time, and then 6 weeks later she told us to file independently because her business claim was denied. If you file as part of a business claim, you are not allowed to file independently because that would be considered filing twice. So once she was denied the business claim, we were able to file independently. And at that time, I finally was able to receive unemployment benefits, which included the $600. So I lived off of the unemployment benefits until May 1st. And then by May 1st, we had a conversation about opening, and we had decided that it was still very unsafe to be reopening given the activities that we did on a daily basis at work. So we had decided to remain closed until May 15th. So I continued to get unemployment benefits until the 15th, and then I did not return to work until May 19th, I believe. And at this time, I had also started my internship because my internship was put on hold after the school closed in March. So I had been attending internship meetings every Tuesday from the end of January until right before spring break. And I remember also just distinctly some of my internship co-workers, I guess you could call them, discussing what was going to happen with coronavirus and what was going to happen if the school closed, or if we didn't come back after spring break. And I remember my professor being like, "What are you talking about?" And we were all like, coronavirus has hit the United States and it's spreading really rapidly, and UT is thinking about closing. And he was like, "That's impossible. I haven't heard anything about that. I haven't heard anything about coronavirus, and research can't just stop." And that's such a surreal experience to look back on now, knowing everything that we know. It just really solidifies in my mind that if you're that engulfed in your work and, things that you have scheduled yourself to do, you just really tune out everything else, and you just don't have the time, because I was in the same boat as him. And I don't remember ever hearing about anything like that until literally 24 hours before. I don't think I was alone amongst my peers and professors about not knowing much about this and just not having the information that we needed to make informed decisions about it. My internship resumed May 19th, and it was remote at that point. So I was supposed to work at the University of Tennessee Department of Chemistry lab, but I could not. So I did remote work. I did a lot of computer engineering work. I did a lot of computer engine, software engine type work, along with integrations and things that had to do with like substances in water and things like that. It was really interesting, really cool. I was able to present at a national conference, all my work, so that is also on my YouTube channel. If you want to search Discovery Day 2020, you can watch what I did for my research, if you're interested. So as I was doing my internship, I was also juggling 3 summer classes, and I was just trying to stay safe the whole time, you know, like everything was still closed. The entire month of April just flew past because we couldn't do anything. Everything was closed. The only things that were open were certain fast food restaurants, and you could go through the drive-thru and do like a kind of contactless delivery. But yeah, everything else was closed, so we just had to stay home, and it was really hard because, you know, the isolation gets to you when you're home with your family and everything else, and tensions run high sometimes, and there's nothing to do, and you're just stuck in the house, and you want to get out, but you can't.
I just wanna be the one you love. Lost all ambition, worthy acclaim. I just wanna be the one you love. Acclaim.
So, yeah, and there was a shortage of PPE, so none of us had masks. So my mom is a seamstress, and so she was trying to get her hands on fabrics and elastics and things to make masks, and that was really hard. So we just used what we had and made some makeshift masks, and that's what we did. I had 2 N95s that I reused countless times. I literally still have them in my car, just like almost a memento of the first masks that we used for the pandemic, but they're disgusting. They're blown out and they don't work, so I would not recommend reusing your masks like that. But that was what we had, and we had to deal with what we had. I did put in my 2 weeks when I started back at my escape game job in May. So my last day was June 4th, I believe. And then I started full-time at my internship, and I did my internship along with my summer classes until August. I also wanted to mention that move out was up in the air for a really long time. So in the end, I had to schedule a date and time to move out of my dorm room because we left during spring break and all my stuff was still in my room. So I scheduled to move out on May 5th, 2020, and my fiancé and I went up to my dorm room, packed everything up, and left. And that was pretty much it, but there was no one else moving out except for me because of no contact rules. So in August, we were still kind of unsure about what would be happening with the fall semester at UT. Some of my classes were kind of up in the air. I was only taking 4 classes at the time. So when I enrolled in them, basically everything that we had enrolled in, we had been unenrolled from because there was so many changes occurring at the time. So I kind of had to redo my entire fall schedule, and at the time of enrollment, 2 of my classes were strictly online, and the other 2 were kind of up in the air. And by the end of it, I only had to attend a class in person 1 day a week, and that was Thursday. So every Thursday, I would commute to UT, which is an hour away from my house, and I got a commuter pass for the first time ever in my college career, and was able to just park right in front of the building and go in, and we had to wear masks at all time. All of our chairs were 6 feet apart. I remember it just being really surreal, just sitting in a classroom like that, not being able to interact with any of my peers or the professor or really anybody. And everything just got so switched around. Group projects were totally different. And I really honestly didn't even talk to two of my professors for the entire semester because everything was virtual. So I don't remember ever talking to them via Zoom or on camera or anything like that. All of our communications were by email, and all of the lectures were pre-recorded. Some of the lectures weren't even taught by the professors of the class. They were kind of just like substituted from other schools that were teaching the same curriculum. So it was really weird, and it was kind of hard too. But and then Zoom classes. I had Zoom classes regularly scheduled at the same time that where my classes would be, which honestly I found kind of enjoyable because it really took the preparation time down for my classes. I didn't have to get ready. I didn't have to focus on my appearance really because I could just turn my camera off. I didn't have to factor in commute times, walking from dorm to class back, anything like that, driving to class, anything like that. So, it honestly, it took a lot of stress off of me, and I hate to say that because obviously you're living in the middle of a pandemic, people are dying, you know, it's not something to be happy about, to try to find joy in or anything like that, but I just, having the load of everything that I committed myself to taken off my shoulders was really good for my mental health, even though I was still really isolated and alone, and it was still really difficult. That aspect of it really did take a lot of pressure off of me. Yeah, and since then I've really tried to vow to myself to not overbook myself like that again. So I don't know that I would have survived 2020 if I had to keep going to all those commitments. But yeah. So all of that kind of just flew by the fall semester. We were not allowed fall break or any breaks for that matter. So we just went straight through from August to the beginning of December. My last final was December 6th of 2020. So I finished my bachelor's degree on December 6th in my bed at 11:05 in the morning. And I could put in the TikTok that I made about finishing my bachelor's degree. Well, I just finished my bachelor's degree in bed at 11:05 a.m. So that was really surreal. And then commencement. I also have some videos and photos from commencement, so I will insert those as well. But yeah, commencement was really weird. It was a small commencement. I was only allowed to invite 4 people. All of us were socially distanced. We had to enter in certain gates and exit certain gates. We all had to be masked at all times. And we sat there for like 20 minutes, and then we walked across the stage and we exited. We weren't allowed to stay and chat. There was no concessions. There were no booths, nothing like that. And it was really dystopian because I had this picture of my graduation in my head, since I was a freshman, and that obviously was not possible.
Your research, your performances, and your art. You have pursued your passions, and you have given your all to the causes that move you. Despite everything that has come your way, especially the challenges that have been thrown in your way over the last several months, you have stayed the course. You remained focused on your goal, dug into your work, and you have proved to everyone that you can accomplish hard things. Today's conferral of degrees is a public acknowledgement of your achievements to this moment, as well as a shared acknowledgement that all of you must still go to class on Monday and Tuesday, take your final exams before you receive your degrees. But you know what? I don't have the slightest doubt that you will do that. I don't have the slightest doubt that you will finish strong. So, now that I've gotten all that legal stuff out of the way, would you please rise? By your presence this evening, you demonstrate that you have completed all the necessary requirements for your respective degrees and have been recommended for graduation by the faculty of the College of Arts and Sciences. Therefore, by virtue of the authority of the state of Tennessee, vested in the Board of Trustees of the University of Tennessee System, and by them delegated to me, it gives me great pleasure to confer upon you the degrees for which you have been recommended. Undergraduates, you may now move your tassels from right to left. Congratulations. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great day on Rocky Top, and as always, it's great to be a Tennessee Vol. Let's give these young men and women another round of applause. We will close today's ceremony with the singing of the university's alma mater. Once we finish, graduates, you will come up to the front and process across the stage, and your names will be called individually to recognize your achievement. Ladies and gentlemen, once our students cross the stage, they're going to exit the arena. Periodically during the crossing process, our reader, Mr. Prim, will pause and dismiss the members of the audience whose graduates have crossed the stage and left. We have timed these pauses so that you do not have to be separated for so long from your graduates, and so that we can manage a safe and healthy exit from the arena for everyone. I would ask you all to be patient and to remain in your seats until the pauses are called.
Nicholas Austin Portilla. Kendra Caden Patton.
Let's go, Kendra!
Viet Tim Quach.
A lot of my family members watched from the live stream online, so family members that couldn't make it, or that were in another state, or that weren't part of the 4 people that got to come with me. So yeah, it was crazy. So I'll insert some clips from that, and yeah, after that we had a couple more days of classes after commencement. My commencement was on, I believe, November 22nd of 2020, so that was like a Saturday or Sunday. And then I had a couple of these classes, and then I had finals. So December 5th or December 6th I was done, and after that it was like, what do I do with my life now that I'm done with college? I've been working every day nonstop for 4.5 years, and then all of a sudden I'm just done, and we're still in this pandemic, and we don't know when it's going to end or what's going to happen next. So I'm also filming this on the day that I scheduled my first Moderna vaccine, which will be on March 31st, that I had to travel an hour away to get because the health department at my city is booked. And then also I got a haircut today. So, very special day. I'm glad I'm recording this today. Yeah, today is March 19th, Friday, March 19th of 2021. Also, it was very weird planning a wedding in the midst of a pandemic because when I bought my wedding dress, I was only allowed 2 people, and I had 3 with me. So one of them had to sit in the car, and then when I picked my wedding dress out, she was able to come in and see it, and then we all had to leave. So that was really weird. When I picked it up, I had to stand like away from everybody else. We have to wear masks at all times. Even at my job now, whenever I check in the mornings for my shifts, I have to take my temperature. I have to do a questionnaire about whether or not I've been in contact with anybody with COVID-19, whether or not I've traveled, whether or not I've tested positive, if I have primary or secondary symptoms. I have to wear a mask all day, every day, 8 hours a day for my shifts at least, and then if I want to go anywhere else, I have to wear one. I bought these inserts to wear inside my mask so that they don't suffocate me and go inside my mouth when I breathe and stuff like that, so it makes it a little bit easier to wear them for long periods of time. I'm also allergic to latex, so I have a hard time wearing the paper ones because the strings are elastic. So I try to wear homemade ones or double mask or something like that. But yeah, my ears are just wrecked from having to wear the paper ones. It's just easier to just dispose of them, but I know that's not environmentally sustainable. But yeah. If I think of anything else, I will put more clips in as I'm editing. And hopefully you'll get an idea of what it was like to graduate in the midst of a pandemic, especially seeing my videos and pictures, and just how surreal it was to live in a time that, you know, a historical event that only happens every 100 years or so. Hopefully you'll get a feel for that. If you're entering college anytime soon, I wish the best for you, and I hope that you're able to get vaccinated and attend school safely, because it is once in a lifetime experience to do that and to graduate, and it's really hard to accept when that picture that you had in your mind is not what happens. But we just have to deal with what's going on and make the best of it and just adapt. So yeah. Oh, I forgot to tell you also my minor, when I fell into my minor my senior year, it was just because I had taken some prerequisites and they had accumulated themselves into a minor somehow, and that minor was international agriculture. So I graduated with my bachelor's in biochemistry, cellular molecular biology. My minor is in international agriculture. I did still manage to graduate with honors. I graduated magna cum laude with a GPA of 3.7, even in the midst of a pandemic, with online school and everything. My internship ended fabulously. I had a great time. That's my story. I really can't wait to just look back on this in, 20 or 25 years and show my kids this and my grandkids this, because living through something like this, I just know is going to be a huge topic of discussion when my kids and my grandkids are in school. So I just picture like them having to do an assignment where they have to interview someone who lived through the pandemic, and it just happens to be me. Like this if you enjoyed watching, share it if you think it's worth sharing. Let me know if you have any similar experiences, or if you are entering college and you're kind of worried about this, or if you graduated during normal times and you just want to compare your experience and what mine should have been. Let me know down in the comments what you thought. Subscribe to my channel, and also hit me up on social media, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, any of those platforms, and have a good day. I'll see you next one.